Hey there, Goblin Gang. Nico here, and welcome back to the folding table I have in my living room instead of real furniture. I finished this semester, and I'm pretty sure I passed all my classes, so I've had some time to actually prepare, as you can tell by this giant pile of stuff in front of me. Today, I've got the Ferro Slickster in medium with the East India patch, and the Feel Vakarian with the N7 patch, which I've had since, the Mass Effect 2 Collector's Edition. Both of them are in black, and I'll be comparing them. Unlike the 6094 and the 0300 comparison, these are from completely different companies, made for different size plates, with different purposes in mind. Because of this, my size is going to become a little bit more important than it was last time. To reiterate, I'm 5'7", weigh about 145 to 150 pounds. And back when I was in the Army, I wore a small IBA, an extra small Generation 1 IOTV, and a small soldier plate carrier system. Before y'all get into it in the comments again, I'll have you know I'm actually quite tall for a goblin. Thank you. Now, you might think that this is an unfair comparison, and it really is for different reasons both ways. However, as I was writing this, I included a large digression about the differences between SAPI sizes and 10x12s, with these two carriers standing in for those two different plate sizes. Don't worry, I'm still talking mostly about the carrier specifically. Full disclosure, I received about a 20% discount on the Vakarian after drilling the Kene social media guy with a bunch of questions about the design and a couple of my first impressions just looking at pictures of it. Both mine and passed on by some of the Discord friends. I did not mention making a video until after the carrier itself had arrived in the mail. I did not speak with Ferro at all for this one. However, I didn't pay for this. It was loaned to me by one of those aforementioned Discord friends. Thanks, Iowa, in exchange for a couple of patches. Let's get this table cleaned up, lay these carriers out, and we'll start comparing them. These two have a very similar layout, with the front and back plate bags matching the shape of the plate, straps attaching at the top corners come out around your neck and shoulders, which makes a kind of triple hourglass shape. You can kind of see it here. And both have Velcro, or loop, sections in 4 spots. The rear back, which allows attachment of the elastic cummerbund, which has cells for magazines. On the Slickster it has 4. We'll get over to the Vakarian in a second. An upper back panel for ID patches, an upper front panel for ID patches again, and a lower front panel which allows the cummerbund to attach in the front. The Slickster here has these laser cut sections which allow you to attach a placard clips, and then let's take a look over the Vakarian. Again, very similar shape, matching the shape of the plate, front and back, Velcro on the back, top, front bottom, front top. The straps come out after attaching at the corners. I think the angle is slightly more pronounced on the Vakarian. And then the elastic cummerbund, which only has 3 cells. You can tell by the loops on the bottom. Neither one has a drag handle, and we start to see some differences. For example, the Vakarian has laser cut molly webbing here on the back, both the bottom and the top, and then also has that same laser cut webbing in the front on the top section, where you wouldn't be putting a placard. The Vakarian also has right here a regular webbing PALS section for attaching anything right there, and instead of the laser cuts on the Slickster, it uses straps and comes with buckles already attached. Might be a little bit difficult to see in black on black, but they're there. from that, you can kind of tell that the Vakarian is a general purpose, scalable plate carrier that you're expected to be attaching more things to. The Slickster, on the other hand, doesn't have any provisions for attachments other than the Velcro and these cuts for a placard. That's because the Slickster is very specialized as a concealable, low-profile carrier. Realistically, the Slickster Molly, which has a laser cut grid on the back with the same front, or the FCPC V5, Ferro's more general purpose carrier, would be a better comparison over with the Vakarian, but for price and for the fact that I was able to get this Slickster without paying for it, that's what I have, and that's what we're going to be looking at. I don't necessarily understand concealable plate carriers, especially when you're goblin-sized, because it's very difficult to really conceal hard plates. Hello there, fellow insurgent, protester, and/or extremist. Would you like to build a bomb and/or a 3D printed gun? There are definitely plates intended for concealment that would have worked better with, along with choosing a better way to dress, as Made has aggressively reminded me. Continuing with the concealable trend though, the Slickster's shoulder adjustment is concealed in the rear plate bag. You use this little piece of plastic, it's basically just a thin card, and you take it, push it up on the underside to separate the Velcro here, which you can hear. And once it's separated, you leave the tool in place while tugging the strap in or out. From the attachment is from about here to here on each side. I'm not going to show doing it because it's kind of fiddly and slow, and I've already sized this too. As I already mentioned, the Vakarian has placard buckles already installed, while the Slickster does not. So to even things out, I'm going to be using these buckles from LBT, attach it there, and this S-Tac triple magazine front panel just for comparison purposes. Let's go take a look back at the Vakarian. Back to the Vakarian, I've already mentioned the laser cut molly here, but not only that, the rear includes a covering flap to give you a little bit of extra security for where you mount the cummerbund to. That feature is also standard on the Ferro's Slickster molly back one, but I don't have it on the basic Slickster there. Over to the shoulder pads, the Vakarian uses a much simpler overlapping Velcro straps. You just attach them where they fit for you. There's a huge amount of adjustment. You can see here how long these adjusting straps are right there, so it should be able to fit just about everyone. Of course, goblin-sized as I am, I have a pretty massive amount of overlap. Dealing with this, if you're a smaller person, you got a couple of different options. One way to do it is get simply goblin tape, available in your local Walmart's sports section. You can also cut and burn the ends. According to the Can I Social Media guy, their warranty will cover field modification that isn't completely destructive. I'd still speak with them before you plan on doing anything. Don't take my word for it. Or you can tuck it up under the included shoulder pads, which are simple trifold, just like that. So, just like that. So they will wrap around here and include some very nice elastic loops for routing a camelback or a radio cable if you are running one. Speaking of included accessories, in addition to the already attached buckles and shoulder pads, which I have here with a camelback hose looped through the routers there, the Vakarian also comes with this placard, which has laser cut moly on the front and a Velcro lined pouch for magazine insertables, including this triple 556 magazine insert, this double 762 magazine insert, and this 6-cell panel for shotgun shells or batteries. And it attaches to any of the plenty of Velcro available on the Vakarian. It also has this dangler abdominal pouch, which quite spacious, attaches on to the front under your placard. And then there is also this Velcro delete panel for attaching to the back of the placard if you're just going to wear it as a chest rig on its own. All of this comes for $175 standard price on their website. Over Black Friday, it was being sold for $150. If you're a first-time buyer, you can sign up for the newsletter for a 15% discount, and that drops the price of this without any other sales to about $148 to $149. Recently, they're even giving them out in return for $100 donations to a goat sanctuary, because if nothing else, Can is incredibly consistent with their memes. That said, you can consistently get this for about $150 delivered. In comparison, the Slickster comes with the front plate bag, the rear plate bag, and the elastic cummerbund. Total of $160, or you can get it without the cummerbund for only $130. Over Black Friday, Ferro had a 20% off sale. I'm not as familiar with what their regular discount cycle is, but I haven't heard a whole lot about them. The Slickster Molly and the FCPC V5 cost more and don't come with cummerbunds. So I built a list of equipment from Ferro that would get you the same functionality in general, with a couple of small differences, and trying to save as much money as possible off the Ferro website. And here it is. So the Slickster with the cummerbund is going to cost $160. The Slickster Molly is $175, while the FCPC V5 is $267. The Carry Elastic Cummerbund, which is this one, is going to cost an additional $60 for either the Slickster Molly or the FCPC V5. Their triple elastic AR magazine front flap, which is a elastic 3 mag panel that attaches to the front, is $60 as well. Their dangler is $50, and their padded strap socks are $32. So with a little bit of limitation and a little less flexibility than the Vakarian, you're going to be paying about $302 to $469 dollars for that setup from Ferro Concepts. Certain colors will cost a little bit extra for certain parts. So what's the catch? Why does the Vakarian come with so much more compared to the Slickster for half to a third of the price? If you watched the last video, I'm sure you can already guess what at least one of them is. Ferro Concepts is Berry compliant. That means certifiable US materials, US work, and having to pay for that. The Vakarian, on the other hand, is made in Vietnam. If that's a deal breaker for you, it is what it is. But if it's not, well, actually constructing the plate carrier itself is pretty much just sewing. And since most soft goods are made in Asia already, it just kind of makes sense to make one there as well. Secondly, Ferro sells their carriers as part of a modular system, in their case called ADAPT, which includes a bunch of different accessories. And modularity costs money. It presents a business problem in terms of what to make and when, with dozens of different SKUs, which can cause supply chain issues, inventory tracking, and so on. Each piece or SKU becomes a separate production run, which can rack up setup and shutdown costs. If you didn't know, I'm a graduate business student, so this is kind of my thing. For example, the Slickster combo I have here comes in 6 different patterns or colors. Multicam, Multicam Black, Coyote Brown, Ranger Green, Wolf Gray, and the black I have here. And 2 sizes, SAPI Medium and SAPI Large. That's 12 SKUs for a single carrier, and they've got 4 different carriers available. So that's 48 before you even get to any of the accessories, which each come in 2 to 6 different colors depending on the specific item. So those supply and production cycles can make stock kind of inconsistent, so it's very unusual to be able to buy everything you want from Ferro all at the same time, which can often be quite frustrating. In contrast, the Vakarian has a single SKU. The only color option is black. The only size option is 10 by 12. Their one size kind of fits everyone. They have teased having Coyote Brown and Ranger Green, but we haven't seen them yet, although I have been told they are forthcoming as soon as they work out their own production issues. And that's how it goes. Speaking of fit, let's talk about plate sizes. Before I get to the plate carriers themselves, let's have a quick discussion about the different sizes and shapes of plates. On the US market, there's basically 2 kinds of sizes available. The military's SAPI, or small arms protective insert, and the civilian sizes, which are described by their major dimensions. Got here a bunch of rectangles cut in the different sizes, although you can see I didn't cut out the corners like basically every plate has cut off. For example, this one is SAPI Medium, which is 9.5 inches by 12.5 inches, and the actual medium SAPI plate has the upper corners cut off right there, but it has the correct size displayed. So SAPI sizing goes all the way from extra small, which is quite narrow and long, small, medium, large, and extra large. Most of the plates and plate carriers you're going to find are going to be available in either medium or large, with a little bit more, a little bit harder to find for extra large and small. And I have never found a civilian plate carrier in extra small. If you know of one, please let me know in the comments. I'd be curious to see it, and I've never seen plates in those sizes. So most carriers in SAPI size on the civilian market, you're usually going to find in medium and large. But if you look around enough, you'll be able to find other ones. Civilian sizes have 3. 8 by 10, 10 by 12, and 11 by 14, which is identical to the SAPI extra large. Unlike the SAPI sizing, which has a pretty decent variety, almost every plate you're going to find is going to be a 10 by 12. Civilian plates also typically come in two different cuts, which is going to be shooter's cut, which has the corners cut off at the top, very similarly to the SAPI cut we already saw, and swimmer's cut, which has a shallower cut down and then cuts off a little bit more at the bottom, giving it kind of an egg shape. And like I said, almost all of them are going to be in 10 by 12. There are also side plates available, and those are typically in 6 by 6 or 6 by 8. And just as a side note, the military extra large side plate is simply an extra small SAPI plate worn on the side of the vest. So, with 10 by 12 as the most common, let's see where it kind of fits in here. 10 by 12 has approximately, has a vertical height partway between small and medium, and a width in between medium and large. I'm just going to be upfront right now. I don't like 10 by 12 plates. They don't fit me. They're always too short or too wide, and just kind of never quite fit. That said, they do work for a lot of people, and the sort of standardization on the civilian side onto a single plate size has brought the price of ceramic plates down pretty drastically. RMA, for example, offers a multi-curve shooter's cut 10 by 12 level 4 plate for only about $160, $170 per, a little bit cheaper on sale. Which was pretty much unheard of when I first started getting into civilian body armor. So I'm a fan of it, even if I don't actually like to wear it. So fitting your plate properly is going to be pretty important. You have a very real trade-off between protection and mobility. If your plate is too big, you're not going to be able to move your arms around properly. You're not going to be able to shoulder a rifle. You're not going to be able to shoot a pistol. And if it's too small, you're just not going to have enough protection. So SAPI plates do offer a lot more size options, but on the other hand, they do end up being a lot more expensive than 10 by 12 plates for much of the same reasons we already talked about with modularity in soft goods. Plate carrier fit and feel can be very subjective. To give a bit of an objective comparison, I'm going to mark this shirt up with how some things fit and compare them. Before putting either of these carriers on, I want to show you where I shoulder a rifle without wearing kit. To record that, I'm going to use this white shirt and this poor man's Dykem, which is just some blue paint I bought from Walmart, to blue up this basic rifle stock. Hold on. And that's going to mark and record where I shoulder a rifle normally. So, basic rifle here, clear, empty, and I'm just going to get a bunch of this paint onto this stock. Alright, nice and wet. I'm going to make a big good impression here. And we're going to shoulder it. Okay, right in there. Okay. So, as you can see by the mark here, I bring it in a little bit closer into my chest than some people do. I'm also used to using a higher scope mount than I've got on this particular one, so it did throw me off a bit. Where this is would typically put the rifle stock on a plate or on one of the straps, which makes it very unstable. So I'm going to have to shift around whatever I'm doing in order to get a good shoulder position, good cheek weld while I would be shooting wearing one of these plate carriers. Any kind of plate carrier is almost certainly going to force you to adjust a little bit. It just takes some practice and some familiarity with your carrier. Alright, so now I've got to let this dry. Give me a little bit. Now that the blue has dried, I have this set of Hesco 3810s in SAPI medium, pulled out of my main carrier. It's the size and cut that this Slickster was designed for and is compatible with the Vakarian. Because it's made for this carrier, I'm just going to start with it. The back plate is already in, so you can't see me putting that guy in. But it's a standard bottom loader with a Velcro attached flap to secure the plate. You can't see it from here. I will include a picture. But there is a section on the inside with a Velcro strap that seems to be intended to insert soft armor or a plate backer, and it'll hold it in place there. Okay, now that I have it in, I'm going to mark where the edge of the plate is with chalk, and we'll take a closer look at that in a little bit after I do it as well with the Vakarian, and we'll be able to compare those two. So, except for up on the shoulder, this comes pretty close to the edge of the carrier. And you can tell it's definitely very well fit. I definitely get the feeling that this would not work too well with a 10 by 12 plate, or even if this plate got much thicker. But it's a concealable carrier, so kind of expected that. Alright, it's marked up, loaded up. I'm going to put this on. So, with the Slickster on, it's pretty comfortable. There's a thin layer of mesh padding front and back. It's not very thick, so I can still definitely feel the plate. But the mesh is going to mean it's pretty breathable, especially over a long period of time. So this is probably going to stay pretty cool. And that makes a lot of sense for a carrier that's at least somewhat intended for people to be wearing under other clothing. I don't like the lack of padding on the shoulders. It's still pretty comfortable. The shoulder straps are nicely positioned. And yeah, the lack of padding there is definitely a concession to this being concealable. Before I grab the rifle again, I'm going to mark the edge with this red marker. There we go, just put my arm out. I'll do the same thing with the Vakarian, and we'll be able to compare those later. And then also I'm going to mark along the bottom. Excellent. So you can see here on my right shoulder that the blue paint from where I stamped my shirt with the stock earlier is almost completely covered. Like I was saying before, putting on a plate carrier is going to change how you shoulder a rifle. So, for example, clear again, and bringing it up. So when I bring it up at first, it catches on the edge, and then I'm able to find a good position, and it's working just fine. It's it's pretty comfortable. With a little bit of practice, be able to find it pretty easily. So, yeah, it's pretty solid. Other than just carrying your plates, a plate carrier is also there to hold the rest of your gear, or at least some of it, depending on how much weight you want to slap on your carrier. So I put these this S-Tac Duradon mid-length front panel that I pulled off my main carrier using these clips from LBT. Mounted it here, and the draw feels very nice. It puts them exactly where I like them, and so I like that. It's good positioning. Over with the Vakarian, we can already see a difference in design. While the Slickster was very specifically meant for the medium SAPI plate, the Vakarian, on the other hand, was built around the civilian 10x12, which I'll get a better picture in here. Clearly is a perfect fit. The SAPI medium plate that we're going to be using again is narrower, and you can see some more space around the edges, and is a little bit long down at the bottom. So in speaking with the Kene team, they told me that there's a lot of flexibility for different plate sizes built into this. In fact, looking next to it, I'm pretty sure you could fit even a SAPI large plate in here. And the way they do this flexibility is by simply making the securing flap on the bottom absolutely massive. I'll get a better comparison of this next to the Slickster later on. So let's clear this out of the way, and we're going to put the SAPI medium, the same that I used with the Slickster, in here. Unlike the Slickster, there's no internal pouch for soft armor or backers. You'd have to just stuff them in under the plate and let them hold in place like that. And it's a little bit hard to see, but I'll get a better picture, that there is a little bit of the plate hanging out the bottom right here. That said, it fits, feels pretty secure, and I'm going to chalk up the front the same way I did with the Slickster. So already as I'm putting the chalk on, I'm realizing that there's a pretty decent amount of soft space around the edges. And that's not necessarily bad, especially as long as the plate stays stable. Because there's nothing worse than having a plate sloshing around inside the carrier. But, and we'll look at this closer in a bit, there is definitely some more space around the edges. Now that's all marked up. Give me a second and I'll go put this on. So with the Vakarian on, like I mentioned earlier, the plate does feel very solidly secure in there despite all this loose space around the edges. There's thicker padding here than there was on the Slickster, but it's solid fabric instead of mesh, so I'm certain that over time it's going to heat up a bit more and not quite breathe as well. There's a few sewn in chevrons here, which might provide a little bit of breathing space, but the mesh is going to work better over a long period of time. That said, it kind of works. Yeah, it works just fine. So this time, again, before the rifle, I'm going to use this green marker to mark the lines. Similarly, and we'll take a look closer again, you can see that the blue is pretty much completely covered. And then let's get the bottom. All right, so that's marked up. We'll look at this t-shirt after we finish up here, and then taking the rifle, clear again, and shouldering it. So when I shoulder it, I'm catching on some of the fabric. We'll look at it again, but I'm catching on some of the fabric, so I have to, instead of my immediate place I bring it up, I have to shift it out ever so slightly. It's not a huge deal. I'm sure with some practice I'd be able to work around it just fine. But it doesn't come up quite as easily as the Slickster did, and it felt like I was catching on some parts of the soft fabric here, and that can be a little weird, because if you catch on the edge of the plate's going to sort of push you off. But if you catch on this fabric lip, it's going to catch you and then still remain not quite as stable or consistent and comfortable as really getting into your shoulder pocket. So let's check what the draw is. And so the draw with this, and this is the included placard with the included elastic insert. The draw is a little bit slower than with the S-Tac. There's very good security. These magazines haven't moved. I've been taking them around off camera, kind of shaking it up, just seeing what's going on, and holding it upside down, giving it a good little rattle. And they never moved. The draw is a little bit slower. You've got to put a bit more force than I did with the S-Tacs, and that's to be expected. The S-Tac is a excellent high-end piece that I paid $60 for, while this came with the carrier. For this being an included piece, it is absolutely fantastic, and I wouldn't complain too much about it. Where the buckles are is a little bit of an issue. It's putting this a little bit too high. We'll take another closer look and see what the difference is specifically, but this puts it up a little bit higher than I want. I'm sure I could probably adjust this buckle or use a different set of buckles and clip it on the lower of the two molly loops instead of these come set up spanning those molly loops. I'm sure shifting it down would put this where I want it, but there's also, I can feel like an inch or two of space lifting off the bottom when I want the magazines basically flush with the bottom here. Alright, and let's get this off and take a look at this marked up shirt. Here's the marked up t-shirt I have. Honestly, I was pretty surprised by a lot of things that this is showing me. For example, that the Slickster ended higher than the Vakarian did, especially with where it felt when I was drawing the magazines out. It felt that the Vakarian was riding a lot higher, and I think that has a lot to do with specifically where the buckles were. We'll look at that again. But what was really surprising to me was how close the Vakarian and the Slickster were to one another over my shoulder. You can see both of them covered where I normally put the buttstock. And you can also see here, higher up, the Vakarian actually came in narrower while the Slickster started moving out to the side. However, online here, you can see where the Vakarian was only maybe a quarter of an inch. I'm not going to measure it specifically just because this isn't, a perfect, precise measurement here. But you can see that the Vakarian did go out a little bit a little bit further where I was getting the toe of the stock into my shoulder here, and that's something I already talked about. So I think that's most of what we can see from this shirt. We'll take a look now at the marked up carriers themselves. I've got both carriers here stripped and emptied, and we can take a look at the chalk on them. Starting with the Slickster, the lines go very close to the edge. You can tell this was very specifically fit for this type of plate. And then over here on the Vakarian, we've got a lot more space around the edges. Looks like there's about almost an inch on each side, and that's where we start to see the whole where instead of being built around the medium SAPI plate, oopsies, it's built around the 12 by 10, which is going to be, as you can see here, is the exact size of the front bag, but there's still some space around the edges. So, and then with the medium, which we had it in it, you can see where it would have hung off the bottom and the same space around the sides. Looks like you could probably fit a SAPI large plate in there without too much trouble. It would definitely hang off plenty, at least about an inch on the bottom. And with enough spit force and probably a thin enough plate, you might be able to fit a SAPI XL. There's the bottom. Looks like, you're looking at about another 2 inches off the bottom there, which I think that bottom flap could fit. Speaking of the bottom flap, let's take a look first at the Slicksters. That's how much flap there is at the bottom. Measuring from the base of the Velcro, looks like about 3 inches. Comparatively, the Vakarian here is pretty massive. There are about just shy of 6 inches of flap hanging off there. So that's how they manage being able to fit effectively oversized plates. Now, one thing I mentioned with where the placards hung, my initial impression was that the issue is that the Vakarian's placard has straps that are too short. Well, slide these out of the way. And there they are. Straps go from about here to here. That is about 1.5 inches to 1.75 inches. Compare that to this this S-Tac one, and the straps are apparently a lot longer, and they are about 2.75 inches long. However, when you place them next to each other, bottom to bottom, the buckles are actually in exactly the same spot. A little tough to see there. But bottoms lined up, the buckles are exactly in the same spot. Which led me to looking back at where the hanging buckles go. On the Slickster, these LBT buckles are fitted to the bottom of the hanging strap here, which is just at even with the bottom of the top Velcro here. Comparatively, even when slid all the way down on the Vakarian, these buckles are above the top of the or above the bottom of this top Velcro. Comparatively, while these buckles are essentially less than 1/4 inch from the top of this Velcro panel. Over here on the Vakarian, they're about 2 inches taller. Now, one benefit you get here is that these buckles are much more secure compared to these dangling ones, but it doesn't quite put it in the right spot. I could probably just adjust these or move these buckles over and get it into the correct position. So that's something to consider if you run into a similar issue like I did. I have also seen some people with 10 by 12 carriers wearing them a little further down on their chest. For example, with SAPI plates, generally accepted best practice is you put the top of the plate right here into the notch in your collarbone. With these shorter carriers, that might not work. It might not actually cover all the way down to properly cover your center of mass. So letting it out a bit more should give you better coverage and also free up some of your shoulder space as well. That said, it feels entirely wrong to me, so I didn't test that out. Might be something worth looking into for yourself, though. Alrighty, let's get this all cleaned up, and let me share my final thoughts on the Ferro Slickster and the Can-A Vakarian. Some final thoughts here. Like I've said a couple times, this isn't really a fair comparison. They're two very different carriers intended for very different markets at very different budgets and price points. That said, the Slickster is the cheapest Ferro option, and these two are fairly similarly priced, and they do have very similar shapes for them. And I was able to get the Slickster borrowed for free. Objectively, the Ferro is a better carrier. It's higher quality, it fits its plate better, does exactly what it's supposed to do. I'm not about to tell anyone that the Vakarian is just as good. And in general, I hate the phrase just as good. But once you start looking at the pricing and what you're trying to do with your carrier, the Vakarian very well may be good enough for you, which is a different thing from just as good. Like last time, I can't really tell you what those differences are going to be worth to you in monetary terms, but here's some general guidelines. Get the Slickster if you need to wear hard plates concealed, and then you're probably going to be able to get your agency or your unit to pay for it. Same if you're required to be very compliant, or if you just absolutely prefer American made. If you already know your SAPI sizing and wear medium or large plates and already have them, the Slickster or some other Ferro carriers might be more attractive to you than going with the Vakarian. If you've already got a solid chest rig kit and are just looking for a new carrier to put under that chest rig, Slickster's a really solid choice. If you're going to consider the Slickster a different Ferro carrier or really any modular plate carrier setup in general, make sure you have the budget for the full kit and everything, and the patience to possibly have to part your kit together over however long it takes for modular stock to arrive in, or you might have to buy it used or scalped. Just to wrap it up, I mean, it's a great carrier. I don't personally like it, just because I don't like concealed plate carriers. I have no particular use for one. That's nothing wrong with the carrier. Over for the Vakarian, it's better if you're on a budget. You don't have boxes of spare placards and molly pouches lying around like I do, or you aren't quite sure how you want to set a kit up and you're just trying to get a feel for a plate carrier. If you already have or are considering 10 by 12 plates, which is pretty common for a lot of people, the Vakarian is a really solid choice. If you've been making excuses to yourself about training in kit because getting started is too expensive, this Vakarian is going to take that excuse away from you. If you already have a couple of kits and are now looking for a loaner or a try-on kit for friends or just people you go to the range with, then the Vakarian is going to be pretty solid for that. That's exactly what I'm going to be keeping this as. It's going to be my, here you go, I have a plate carrier, let's run around in the woods or go to the range and shoot with it, and you can get a feel for that. In that case, while I usually don't care about how easy it is to adjust a carrier's size, that's actually going to be pretty important here. And in that case, the quick overlap and fold and tuck is a great feature on the Vakarian. In my opinion, the Vakarian right now is the single best starter plate carrier at the entry level value currently available. I have looked at other inexpensive plate carriers. I was actually kind of planning on doing a different video about that, but yeah, I don't think there's any much need to do it because this is where you should start. In a broader market sense, the Vakarian has effectively redefined what an entry-level value plate carrier can and should be. Especially once it starts coming in different colors, there's not going to be a lot to tell someone, don't get this, if that's what you can afford and that's what you're interested in. Anyway, thanks a lot for watching. Please like and subscribe. I'd also love to hear what you'd like to see some more of. I've been thinking, like I mentioned, about doing that cheap carrier comparison. Don't think I'm going to do that anymore. A few of my other ideas are taking a look at my own plate carrier setup, a more general discussion of plate carrier design and building out a carrier as a system towards a goal, and how maybe your personal setup should evolve as you're going, because I really do think that as you wear and use a plate carrier, you should be adjusting it at least somewhat over time. Looking at different lightweight carriers specifically, like the Cry JPC, and giving some attention to a small company that I think does the modular plate carrier system sales and production beautifully and correct. Let me know what you think in the comments below. I already know I'm short. Thank you very much, and happy holidays.